Hello, viewers. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this whole Forspoken scandal regarding how much bad press the game is receiving and how divided it is, basically. Because very recently I had read a comment in the Square Enix channel, on the Square Enix channel, that really just made me think, because I thought it was so plainly, it's just so out in the open, it's just so plain, in the sense that what this individual said, and he's a Russian individual, this among other things made me think, maybe I should talk about this for a little longer. And as for my subscribers, I can't really promise how my schedule in terms of videos will be. Oftentimes I just make videos on impulse. A few weeks ago I was reading manga. Sometimes I talk about video games. I often, most of the time, I often do talk about the implications of media. And this is an implication, and many of these things have to do with cultural implications and cultural differences, which is sometimes, in my opinion, it seems very significant to me. But anyhow, I was on this video here by Square Enix. Apparently, Square Enix had released a Times Square 3D billboard. Okay? Basically a Forspoken type of billboard in Times Square, New York. Now, there was a particular Russian individual, and oftentimes I happen to notice that many people from Russia are very open about things regarding race, and they're not necessarily sensitive regarding them. And please do understand that if you say, well, Russia is not a homogenous country, culturally and racially, that's untrue. Russia's the biggest country in the world as far as I know. There are all types of people. Turkic, Asiatic, all types of races are in Russia. But the predominant and the most dominant sort of influence in Russia is basically Slavic, Varangian type people, most of whom have predominantly European characteristics. Not to say that Slavic people look exactly like Europeans, but nonetheless, it is well known that the Vikings and other groups of barbarians moved north. They took land from other peoples. There's a whole history involved in the creation of Russia and the disputes with many of the Turkic and the Asian peoples throughout history. But that's a whole nother matter. But this individual managed to, and let me see if his YouTube channel has any information about him or any videos. Well, this is just a Russian user or someone who speaks Russian. What I did was I went to Google Translate. I went to the Google Translator to see what he was talking about. What he was referring to with the Cyrillic language. And basically I translated as, and I quoted it here below as a response, I said, and basically what this says is what's written down here in English. So I translated it into English and it says, why is the main character a black woman? It was impossible to make the main character a white guy. This is what he said. And he's serious. And you see, as I've been going through all of these comments, I've been going through Griffin Gaming's chat section on his streams. I've seen a lot of a lot of interesting things, but this to me is the most interesting that I've ever seen, basically, because he said it so frankly, almost as though there's an expectation, there's sort of an obligation that character should be basically white or a Euro person, so to speak. Not to say that Square Enix has not released that. They've given people what they want. Most of their characters have blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay? Final Fantasy VII, Cloud Strife, blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay? A Squaresoft game, right? You know, plenty of people satisfied with Cloud Strife. Plenty of people like the character of Cloud Strife. Alright? Now, many people say that basically that that Alfred Holland is rather disagreeable. Well, Cloud Strife was also rather disagreeable, but that didn't stop people from liking him, and as we can see, he has the features of a European. Blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, the characteristics of Hitler's Aryan master race. We have it. So there's nothing to complain about, obviously. And I'm not saying that you, the viewers, you know, whatever your opinion about it is, I'm just basically calling it as I see it. This man is saying, well, why isn't the main character white? We have right here, Squall Leonhardt. Does he look like a Japanese man? No, he doesn't. These games have been made in Japan, but they have been made with European characters. You would have to be a fool if you were to say, hey, this man is a Japanese character, right? No, he doesn't look Japanese at all, unless he dyed his hair brown and he dyed his eyebrows brown and somehow he gotten some bluish or grayish contacts, right? But no, he's a European looking man, right? Now, if you were to ask me if any of these characters in the classic Final Fantasy series had good dialogue, I would say, frankly, I don't see how much better the dialogue back then is compared to the dialogue now in Forspoken. But that's a whole nother matter. We have Final Fantasy IX, another game from Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix. A character devised in Japan, created in Japan, by people such, as far as I know, Hironobu Sakaguchi. Zidane has blonde hair and blue eyes. There's no problem. Okay, people often do not talk about how bad Zidane is as a character. He is known to be beloved in basically the Square Enix and Squaresoft communities. Alright? Basically, it's the same. Squaresoft, Square Enix, except that Enix joined Squaresoft, but nonetheless, this is part of their history. So, I think about what this person said. I think about what he said, and I'm going to pause this. I guess. Just for a later part of this video that I'm going to talk about. One moment. But, yeah, so he says, why can't the character just be a white guy? Why can't it just be a white guy? And I think, me, as an Afro-American individual, I've been playing Final Fantasy and Squaresoft and Square Enix games most of my life, ever since I was a teenager. And even before then, probably when I was 10 or so years old, I was playing Final Fantasy VII or, any of these games, basically. I played Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. I played Final Fantasy 1, 2, and all of those, so many of those Square Enix games, Squaresoft games. And so, I was very accustomed to playing as a Euro character. Alright, I never really expected to play as an Afro character because there were no Afro characters in RPGs. Even back then in the 90s, there were very few characters who were Afro and were main characters. To be honest, it's so few of them who are main characters. You didn't see that. You didn't find that in an RPG, especially one from Japan. All right? This woman comes from New York. She's an Afro-American character. She is an Afro-British voice actress. So, this is a Russian, a Slavic. And so I went to Google Translate, and I basically translated a response out for him, and I made sure I translated my English into Russian, and I translated the English back into the Russian back into English, so I could make sure this would translate well into both English and Russian. So what I said, this Russian you see up here, this is what I responded to him in. And I said, there are not many black people in Russia. And of course, I don't particularly like using the word black. The word black is related to the word negro, Spanish for black. The word negro is related to the Greek nekro, nekros. That has a connotation of death. Necro means dead. So people call Afro people black. Very few people call Asian people yellow. White is associated with holiness. As far as I'm concerned, no man is holy. So I use the country when I talk. I try to be very specific. So, I consider myself to be an Afro individual, so to speak, but I'm also mixed with Euro as well. European as well. So, to me, it's no real, if you're an Afro-American, you get used to seeing people of lighter skin, darker skin, different shades of brown, because the blood is mixed through slavery. But for some individuals, especially Russians, weirdly enough, and it's not necessarily surprising, a lot of them, they're not used to. They can't associate, they can't relate to an Afro, or at least some of them. Because I've seen Russian players who are playing this game and really enjoy the character of Frey Holland. But you see this person, just like a lot of people in the United States, he can't relate to playing as an Afro-American woman. Obviously, he can play a different game. So I said, there are not many black people in Russia. In the United States, there are many black people. That is a demographic reality. Most main characters in video games are white men and white women. So if you do not like black characters, then perhaps you can play a game with a white character. And it's so obvious. And I translated this in Russian, in Russian as well, and I gave him a response. And I put it in English for good measure, just so that everyone who's reading this comment can know what I'm saying. So I said, people of different races exist. This is logical. And there's really no excuse for it. And the reason I say this is because a lot of you have doubtless heard that there is such a thing as a homogeneous country. Oh, there's homogeneous countries that have people of one race. No. Every country, every developed country, and just about every country that is developing has some type of global cultural contact and interaction. All right? A lot of people say the same thing about Japan, but what many people don't realize is that there's a whole population of people called Ainu people in Japan who are discriminated against on a daily basis, who existed in much of Japan. And in some places in Japan, Ainu people predate Japanese. They live in certain places in Japan where they predate the Japanese. And so they are known about in Japan. And in regard to Christianity and Portuguese and Spanish and other such folks, they were coming there for a while, especially in the 1600s. So there's a whole history. There's a whole history involved. I mean, it's not as though these people from many other countries do not know what an Afro person is. They know what a person of African descent looks like. If they haven't seen an African person, a person of Afro descent in real life, they've seen them on television. And if they haven't seen them on television, they know that people exist. It's almost as though I were to say, there's this country in the world in which they don't have basic educational or scientific or mathematical skills. That's ridiculous. It's a matter of logic. And sometimes I just have to say it's logical. People of different races exist. The character is not white. The character is not European. The character is not Slavic. The character is not of a pale shade of skin. Alright? But it's interesting that he said this, because a lot of people have tried to basically undermine the idea that there's any sort of racial bias involved in regard to the criticism of this game and why people don't like it. Just like I showed you in the last video, if you watched it, in Griffin Gaming chat, there were people who were talking about fried chicken and watermelons, and talking about, oh, these people burn buildings down, they burn cities down. And they're talking about Afro-American people. They're talking about George Floyd. I guess George Floyd was there, said someone, oh no, he already took the fentanyl. All types of racist, or rather, in my opinion, racist talk. Because I'm going to be subjective. I'm not going to say that one thing is objective, because people are very specific about that. They'll say, oh, that's not racist. And I just have to say, it's just my opinion. All of this is just my opinion. But the discussion, I'm going to expand the discussion about this game, because what I've been seeing has been quite ridiculous. In my opinion, I have never seen this amount of vitriol, this amount of sort of despise for just a game that's basically like many other games like Assassin's Creed and all types of action games like God of War. It's a fast action game, Devil May Cry, okay? People usually love games like this, but for whatever reason, for Forspoken, it's different. And I wanted to know, why is that so? Why is Forspoken different? Why is that different? So I showed you this playlist in the last video. I showed you this playlist in the last video. I have about 76 videos now. And one thing that basically is, I mean, it's not necessarily that I'm surprised. There's so many Afro-Americans who are liking and enjoying this game. And it's not just them. This person's Japanese, just like I said in the last video. There's a Russian woman here. She's enjoying it. There's all different types of people enjoying it. And then there's just these people who say this game is objectively, they're saying it's just bad. There's no excuse, this game is just terrible. Okay? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. And as to why, a lot of people cannot explain it. They cannot explain it. But a lot of people are comparing this to some other games. Okay? A lot of people are comparing this to Elden Ring. I have no idea why they're comparing it to Elden Ring. I really don't. One moment, please. I'll be right back. But yes, you have people comparing this game to Elden Ring. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm thinking, these people who are comparing this game to Elden Ring, I don't understand them. It's almost as though Elden Ring is the standard by which everything is being judged. And the awards that Elden Ring has won, in my opinion, it has been a travesty. It has been a big travesty, because Elden Ring was praised for everything by so many reviewers, and I thought, it seems like everyone who's basically citing the sort of mistakes that Elden Ring had, they weren't listened to at all. It's not talked about. Now, this is a new IP by Final Fantasy. I mean, by Square Enix. By Square Enix, I mean to say. By Square Enix. It's not part of any sort of series like Final Fantasy or anything else. And I hope it becomes a series. Well, I think this story will probably end at this game, but I like it. Okay, I really do. And so, oftentimes, I don't really have a problem with reviews. Most of the time, I would say reviews, even though they may not be fair, they're not just, how should I say this? I don't know. They don't seem that unfair. But now, I'm having all types of second thoughts. I'm thinking, wait, something's wrong with this. Because I am watching so many people. I have 76 videos of people enjoying the game. And many of those people, that has to be at least 50, if not 60 different people in that list I have. Okay? Look at it for yourself if you want to see it. Alright? But, I mean, they're saying that, the character models look bad, all types of things, and I'm just thinking, even the hair. Now, certain, the hair did not move as well as it does. Especially, the physics. There's little things. Not everything is about every single aspect of the game looking good. It's also about how it plays. And if the game looked as good as a lot of these people are saying they want it to look, the hardware would not be able to handle it. People are already complaining now about the PC optimization. People are already complaining about how they have to use performance mode on PS5 to get 60 FPS. But that's common. That's obvious, because I remember when Elden Ring was on PS5 and people were playing the PS5 version, and they noticed the only way they're able to get 60 FPS is when they're playing the PS4 version on the PS5. I'm not joking. And I'll tell you exactly why. FromSoft decided to be fancy. In the PS5 version, they said, hey, we're going to put a ton of grass in the game, even though the game did not have that much grass. But you see, what they felt like doing was that they had to make it different. They felt, we can't just release the PS5 version and make it look like the PS4 version. They decided they were going to make that game look fancy for the PS5 version, next generation consoles. And what happened is that in order for you to play Elden Ring at 60 frames per second, you have to play that game. You have to play the PS4 version on the PS5. Now, if PC, you can alter everything. And you can just spend more money and just basically get a bigger rig. Basically. You can spin your way out of it for PC. You can optimize your way out of a lot of this, and you can get a 1080p screen, a 1440p screen. You don't need to be playing these games on a 4K television, 4K monitor. All right. I've seen some people recommend people playing it on a lower resolution monitor, because a lot of these games, regardless of what many of you think, they were not designed to play at 60 frames per second 4K monitors. There are some, sure, that seem to do really well, but the technology and the video games especially, they have not caught up to that. They have not. And a lot of people are complaining, this is $70. Well, I didn't like it when they raised the price for PS4 games to $60. Okay, I remember the time when basically it was $40 when I was a teenager, when I was about 10 or 12 or whatever, and I had, games for $40. So the complaints are entirely nonsensical. That's the price for games today. I think they probably predicted the inflation happening now, if anything. And games are $70. What are we going to do about it? There's nothing that any of us can do. That's just reality. But people are complaining about the price of the game. And I'm thinking, well, obviously, if any of these people were buying a game on the PS4, they'll be paying $60. And a lot of them were not complaining about that. But anyhow, for a little while, let me talk about Elden Ring. Because Elden Ring had a litany of problems, many of which are not even spoken of. People just don't talk about them. And, you know, it was interesting that for a while you did find videos talking about the reused animations, reused assets. Okay. And people were saying FromSoft was lazy because they reused animations. A lot of us have been playing FromSoft games since Dark Souls 1. Okay, and this person is saying, look at the reused animations and how they're downplaying it. Okay. And let me just take a look here. Because this is something a lot of these individuals need to remember. They need to remember this game they praise so much, Elden Ring. It has problems. A lot of them are not admitting what those problems are. That's the problem that I have. Look at this. Look at this nonsense. I mean, exact same animations, and yet they want to praise FromSoft to the highest as though everything FromSoft has done is so fresh. Well, if it was so fresh and FromSoft made such good games, why do they have to reuse all of these animations? This game, so many assets were reused. You know, it's quite ridiculous. I mean, as you can see, I mean, reused animations all throughout. All throughout. It's quite incredible. One moment. But I go to chat and I go to comment sections, people, and watch other people's videos, and I see this. People are talking about Elden Ring, saying, oh, Elden Ring is so much better than Forspoken. Well, Elden Ring is an entirely different type of game. Elden Ring is an entirely different type of game. For one thing, Elden Ring is a game in which it doesn't matter if they make the same game over again. Elden Ring, a lot of people have said it's basically Dark Souls 4. They reused so many assets that it was just ridiculous. PC optimization was terrible. I remember it. I tried playing Elden Ring on my PC. The same PC I had used to play Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. The same PC I'd used to play all types of games. Okay? Elden Ring doesn't look much better than Dark Souls 3. And you see, I couldn't even open up Elden Ring. The specs and specifications that Elden Ring had for the level of graphics that they presented was ridiculous. You can clearly see this game, it basically looks exactly, I mean, they're reused assets. This doesn't look much better than Dark Souls 3. Sure, over time they became better using that graphical engine. They became better using those graphical assets, but nonetheless, this game is it's very let me tell you, it is very, you know, it is basically Dark Souls 3 FromSoft assets, old Bloodborne assets. Okay? That's what it is. People are complaining about the graphics of Forspoken, but at least Square Enix did something unique. A lot of the people who are complaining about Forspoken, they're holding Elden Ring as the standard. That's what they're holding as the standard. And I'd asked in my last video, I said, what is the standard to judge by? Because the people who complain about Forspoken, they have nothing to compare it to. Alright? I mean, this is, people say, well, Elden Ring should be Game of the Year, all types of talk. And I'm not particularly sure what awards it had won. I know it had won Best Narrative. I know it won Best Narrative. I know that it had won that. But I'm not particularly sure what else. Okay, so it went in most anticipated game, best action adventure game, best role playing game. Okay, it's kind of ridiculous. Best role playing game when you can hardly figure out the story because most of the item descriptions are hidden behind just ridiculous challenges. Awful platforming. Now, the platforming in the Elden Ring is so terrible, and you have to use that terrible platform to get to most of the items in that game. It's just like if you want the Frenzied Flame Talisman, you have to basically go down a whole sewer, get to some type of crypt. What was better about Dark Souls 3, it didn't have the stupid platforming. Okay? Now the platforming with the horse is a little bit better, except when you jump on a cliff, sometimes you'll just die for no reason, basically. You just die for no reason, basically. You just will. Okay? But I mean, that's the animation side of it, but, here's the narrative side of it. And with Zuli the Witch, who's saying, does Elden Ring deserve best narrative? Some people are weirdly upset. And you see, this is what Zuli the Witch does. I don't know if this is a man or a woman, but she's another FromSoft votary. A sort of FromSoft, Elden Ring, Dark Souls sort of person who defends the game no matter what. They never criticize it. I haven't seen Zuli the Witch criticizing any FromSoft games even once. She doesn't do that. And he or she decide to say, oh, Elden Ring deserved, because obviously she thinks Elden Ring does deserve best narrative. Elden Ring narrative is basically you reading everything. I'm not joking. Every single item description, you're reading everything. You're reading everything. You just, most of the characters are either dead, most of the characters die. Okay, you can't find most of the characters. Let me show you what Elden Ring, the map of it. Many of you have perhaps seen the map. The Elden Ring map is quite big, and you have very few NPCs on it. You could call it a big open space because basically you can't find many characters, or you can't find really that much. It's huge. Elden Ring is huge. Now imagine, let's say I were just put a bunch of NPCs on this map, this gigantic world, and I would say, hey, you have to find all of them, and we're not going to give you any sort of direction, hints, anything. Another guy could be sitting under a bridge there, and you wouldn't know. Okay, you don't know where the NPCs are. You have to go back and backtrack and do a bunch of weird things. Let's say you're playing the game just normally. Okay? You don't know you have to read, and it's not even about item descriptions. Just finding people to talk to and just trying to get the story in order is very difficult. And that would be fine if you had more people to talk to in general. Alright, you have a few NPCs that we can't really find. However, let's say you have very few NPCs in the whole game and it's very difficult to find them. Now let me tell you something else. Most people, whether they're willing to admit it or not, went right over here. They went to the wiki. They didn't play this game and by themselves and did not basically spoil anything for themselves, because I did too. You see, when I first started, I tried to play this game blind, and I know a lot of other people did. A lot of other people had won the game. They said, I could hardly find anyone. Where'd you find all these people? Where'd you find all these different items? Because most things were hidden. They go right to the wiki and they read up everything here, or they go, and if they want to understand the story, let me tell you what they do to understand the narrative. Let me tell you what most folks have been doing to understand the narrative, because the narrative is so complex. It's so full of symbolism. Most of these folks have no understanding of what it means. Now, I myself am still studying it because there's a lot of esoteric symbolism in it. But, that's a whole different issue. But they come to Vati Vidya, the man who covers his right eye, giving us the basic universal sign of Horus, the moon sign, by covering his sun eye, his eye of Ra. Okay, giving us the sign of black magic, white eye darkened, as you can see. And exposing his his left eye, basically showing his allegiance in a sense, in an occult way. Okay? I think that Vati Vidya is a practitioner of magic, because he's showing us the symbolism right here. You think that doesn't mean anything? You think that has no meaning at all? Him having an avatar that covers his right side, his right eye? All right. Sure. And I'm aware that all of these games have magic. But I just, as a person who's been playing and basically experiencing media for so long, I like there to be fairness. If you're getting most of your information from Vati Vidya and you're going to tell me, as players, oh, we know the lore. The lore is... And it's so funny. You get in conversations with so many of these FromSoft folks, and they parrot. They parrot what Vati Vidya says. What Vati Vidya says is the gospel for a lot of these people, because they cannot understand the story of Elden Ring. I don't even think Vati Vidya understands the story of Elden Ring. And if he does, he's not telling most of the viewers. That's exactly what I think. Okay? Now, I myself, I'm still working on gaining information for my blog about Elden Ring and future videos about Elden Ring. I've been basically... But I tell you the truth, the game has been so boring, and I have so little enjoyment out of it, that I feel very unenthusiastic. So you have pre-release lore, because they took a lot of things out, and it confused even more people about the game. If you don't know, that's what Vati Vidya and Zula the Witch do a lot. They go back and look at things that were released basically before the game even released, so they can understand something more about it. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's just like this character, this person who's walking around the Lake of Rot. They took this character out, but it's just like I said. Most people do not understand the story, but it runs best narrative. Even though there's hardly any NPCs having long talking conversations with you, have to read everything from item descriptions. Most of the item descriptions are vague. Okay, most of the item descriptions are extremely vague, and things are hidden intentionally. And yet, you have a narrative that is hidden from you, but it's winning best narrative, when most people don't even understand the narrative and never really even are able to piece the narrative together. Okay, now think about the logic of that. And you have a game like Forspoken, which is a heavy dialogue-driven game. There's a lot of dialogue in it. She's talking a lot. It's not Elden Ring. It's a different game than Elden Ring. So why people expect somehow Frey is not going to talk so much, and they're not going to tell you what is going on in the story, in the narrative, is ridiculous. The fact that they think the voice actress is basically going to do no work, hey, we paid you money, but we're not going to let you talk much. That's incredible. It really is. But you see, that's what people are using as the standard. They're using Elden Ring as the standard. Elden Ring, Miyazaki and his folks got a lot of awards. They got a lot of praise from all their games. Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, all of this stuff. Bloodborne. Most people are not allowed to criticize it. If you do, you're flamed on the internet. If you don't believe that, if you don't believe that you can get harassed on the internet for this type of stuff, just look at Quantum TV. Just look at Quantum TV, who was a person, he said some stuff about Elden Ring, and they're still talking about Quantum TV. I'm not joking around. This stuff happened like 9 months ago. They're still talking about Quantum TV. Quantum TV has been making his videos about TVs and everything else. They're still talking. Imagine something happened nearly a year ago. Okay, something happened nearly a year ago. They're still talking about it. Who do you think is talking about it? People who hate him that much. Why do they hate him so much? Is there some aspect of him that they hate so greatly? Okay. You have people like Asmongold, And keep in mind, Asmongold and a lot of these folks who attacked Quantum TV are now attacking Forspoken. What do Quantum TV and Forspoken have in common in a sense? The main character is Afro-American. What's Quantum TV? He's an Afro-American. And there's so much heat on Forspoken. There was so much heat against Quantum TV. Okay? And I'm not going to lie. I'm going to connect the two because this was a big thing. And what Quantum TV gave a simple review about Elden Ring. He didn't like it. People basically tried to trash him. They sent him death threats. They sent him emails. They were calling him the N-word. They were doing a lot of nasty things against him. And people like the Act Man and other folks, they didn't acknowledge any of the death threats. They didn't acknowledge how their fans were behaving. They didn't apologize. They just kept going. And this man, this man Asmongold, a lot of these folks, I just see how they behave and what they do on a daily basis. And it was almost as though I kept wondering, why is the level of bias against Quantum TV so great? And anyone basically who would say something about Elden Ring, there were almost like a whole army going against them. Okay? And that's a whole big drama that you may or may not want to look at, though most of what you receive is from the Act Man point of view, the person who Quantum TV was sort of in a conflict with. And a lot of these people like Griffin Gaming, the latter of which I happen to show you his chat and show you some of the racist behavior in his chat and how he gives moderator privileges to people who are saying subjectively, and I say subjectively racist things. I'm not going to say they're objectively racist because people disagree and they want to get into an argument with you and say, oh, that's not really racist. I'll tell you why that's not racist. You know, so I'm just going to say it's subjectively, basically in my opinion. So let's talk about another thing, the input reading. Now, a lot of people, one of the criticisms people have had of Elden Ring, and some people were giving this scores like 10 out of 10. They were holding nothing back in regard to their adulation for Elden Ring. I mean, this is a game that has PS4 graphics that was released on the PS5, and even when it was released on the PS5, it had problems. It had FPS problems and all types of different problems, like save problems, a lot of different history surrounding Elden Ring. Now, what you're seeing here is he's drinking his little flask of cerulean tears. Every time he drinks it, he's going to hit him with a black fireball. This is the great gameplay of Elden Ring. Look at this great gameplay. Look at how good this gameplay is. Look at how good that gameplay is. That gameplay is so good. Look at that gameplay. Every time you drink one of your flasks, look, he gets to hit you with a fireball. And he does it again and again. It's almost like the enemy knows exactly when you're going to do it and does it. It's almost as though it really is as though it is reading your inputs. And there will be some people, oh, well, it's still so good. It's so good. It's a good game. You can't say that about Elden Ring. Elden Ring is not reading inputs. You just don't understand how it works. What is it? What is it? It works exactly like something reading your inputs. It's not fair. Every time people say, you know what? FromSoft is sheep. FromSoft is sheep. And let me say something I've known about FromSoft long before many of you folks started hyping it up, started boosting FromSoft up, and basically becoming a bunch of supporters. Okay? A lot of you simply don't know. You don't know the history of FromSoft. You folks started at Dark Souls. Okay? A lot of these folks started with Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. They don't realize what I and other people experienced when we were playing games like Armored Core. That thing was so janky, and that was before Miyazaki came. But even Armored Core 4 Answer, all of those games had problems. Okay? And those games had serious problems, and they still do. And FromSoft, this Japanese company, there are some people, they really love making the games hard and unfair. And that has been their thing. It's always been their thing. A lot of you folks don't realize that, but you think it started at Dark Souls. Now people start to realize, Armored Core is the proto Dark Souls. It's the Dark Souls before Dark Souls. And I'm just thinking, many of you people have no idea. You weren't even playing games like Kingsfield. A lot of you folks, you're late. You're late to this. You don't realize how the people at FromSoft are. You think this is legitimate challenge. You really do. You think Millennia is fair. You think that's stern but fair. You don't realize this is worse than Dark Souls 3 in terms of just how unfair the bosses are, and you really think they're not reading your inputs? You really think that this game is fair? You really think this is some type of legitimate gameplay? When here you are, you drink your potion, you drink your little flask, and you get hit. You get knocked the F out. Okay? And you have to rethink some things because you start to realize that these games were purposely designed this way. They're lazy developers. And then a lot of you folks want to complain, Forspoken gameplay is terrible. They talk too much. Okay, if Elden Ring is all about the gameplay, why couldn't they make it better? Why do you have input reading? Why do you have input delay? Okay? Why is the platforming so terrible? Why is the animation for jumping so ridiculous? Why is it so that I can jump on my horse and jump down a cliff, and I'm almost down to the ground, but I will jump my horse down to the ground and my character dies? It still happens today. It hasn't been fixed. FromSoft is not going to fix this. You really think these folks at FromSoft are going to fix that? One thing I can say about Square Enix games, Squaresoft games, for the most part, they're polished. They have a higher standard of quality than FromSoft. And I know because I've been playing FromSoft games before many of you folks start playing them on the PS3 or the PC. Okay, I was playing FromSoft games on the PS1. A lot of you folks, and I usually don't talk like this. I usually don't get this serious about video games, but I am because I see that some of you folks are messing with my girl. You're messing with this Afro-American character, this Afro-British voice actress, and you really taking it personal. You're coming in comment sections acting stupid. Do you really expect that I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and not talk about this? Like a lot of other Afro-American people who are kind of afraid to talk about this and really get down into the nuances of this whole discussion about how bad Forspoken is. No, I'm going to take your favorite game that so many of you folks talk about. I'm going to talk about how it really is. Many of the things most of y'all folks weren't talking about. Okay? You saw the animations. You see the input reading. It had serious problems. This game is polished. You may not like the gameplay. You say, I want to play Hogwarts Legacy. But let me just say this. It's polished. You don't have to worry about, as far as I know, input reading in this game. You want to talk about fair? This is fair. Sure. Maybe you have a bit more power, or a lot more power than you do in Elden Ring and Dark Souls, but you don't have a boss input reading you. So there are different types of games. It's a narrative-heavy, narrative-focused game, action game, where you're given more movement and speed. Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, they're basically slow games. Okay? They're basically slow games. This game is fast. A lot of you like Devil May Cry. A lot of you folks like games like old-fashioned games like Heavenly Sword. Okay? Asura. Some of you folks like Asura. Well, look at this. Forspoken is really fast. What are you complaining about? All of those games, Heavenly Sword, God of War, Assassin's Creed, all types of adventure games have had stories and heavy narrative. It's just in this case they really wanted you to know who Frey is. Obviously, I mean, if they had not provided the dialogue and many of the other things, let's say they did this like a FromSoft game, and they decided, we're not going to give you the narrative by character dialogue. We're going to give you item descriptions. We're going to do what FromSoft did. If they had done that, you would be complaining too. You say, they're trying to copy off Elden Ring. They're trying to copy off FromSoft. They're trying to copy off Dark Souls. They suck. This is a woke game. It's woke trash. They're just copying off the alpha males from alpha males. Get out of here. I would never consider those people alpha males. I heard about what happens in the FromSoft workplace. I mean, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen at most game workplaces where you have women being harassed, and all of the claims from FromSoft workers, people who worked at FromSoft, talking about how mostly men work there. You had a woman who wanted to take some, I believe it was a pregnancy leave. Go and read about some of the work conditions in FromSoft. And then you can sort of figure out how they pump those games out so fast. Okay? Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. Okay? Armored Core 6. They're rushing those games out of here. They really are. They're making those games fast. Okay, they're crunching those workers. Okay? I mean, you wonder why these games are so depressing and so dour and so gloomy. It's not just the occultism and the esoterica involved in it. Okay? I mean, they're very dark games. They're gloomy. They're not funny games. So, Forspoken put some comedy in a lot of you folks. Oh, dialogue sucks. Oh, they're really trying to be funny. Oh, this is not funny to me. Yeah, and it's funny that a lot of Afro-American folks are enjoying it and laughing at the jokes, and a lot of... And it's not all Euro-American folks, obviously. I would never generalize. But there are some particular individuals, oh my goodness, they hate Frey. They hate her as a person. It's just unbelievable. For example, I was looking at Griffin Gaming's chat. Okay, I take screenshots of Griffin Gaming's chat because Griffin Gaming is a coward. Griffin Gaming has a chat where he allows all types of racist moderators, in my opinion, racist, subjectively racist. I'm not saying they're objectively racist and that my statement is absolutely true, but I'm saying in my opinion, okay? Because I have to be very careful because there are a lot of folks, they want to basically say, you said that is an absolute statement that they're racist. No, I'm saying in my opinion. You're hearing this from me. You're not hearing this from anyone else. Okay? Griffin Gaming. Now I've caught streams and chat from his channel. Take a look at the lives. You see, this is currently live, but he's going to delete the stream because he had a lot of craziness going on in his chat section. A lot of what you may say are offensive things. If you're an Afro-American person and you go into that chat, you might not appreciate some of the things you see. And let's say you decide to type something back, you're going to get a response, or they may just ban you or kick you out because it's not your community. They have their own little community here where they basically say things like the main character is a hooligan and New York is a rat city and all types of things. I'm just saying, what if someone from New York really happened to... I mean, you hear all types of weird stuff, but this is just simple stuff. I mean, this isn't the worst. Homeless people get more food than regular people. Sure, whatever. Okay, say what you want to say. And they're saying, like, at least she was aborted. The victim, all this type of stuff, nasty stuff. And keep in mind, a lot of these people are moderators. They have something personal against Frey. They have something personal about her as an individual. It's something about her they don't like. And you can be the judge of what they don't like about her. Okay, you can be the judge. I'm not saying anything definite myself. Okay? It's one thing to dislike something, but I mean, you can certainly see there's, and I'm not really on the most offensive stuff, but here we go. Let me see. So basically, this is a moment in the game where she's standing on something high and they're saying jump. Do a flip. They want her to jump off because they hate her so much they basically want her to commit suicide. They hate her that much. They're talking about, it's so much spite. They're like, jump, and just about everybody in that comment section saying jump. Hey, jump, do a double flip. We certainly don't like you. If they're saying this about a fictional Afro-American main protagonist, what would they say about real people? Sure, some people may say, oh, they're just saying about a fictional character. It's no big deal, dude. But no, and you see, these are the real gamers. What's up, gamers? And, some of them say, we know the real gamers. So who are the real gamers? Are any of the real gamers Afro-American? Do they actually, because it seems as though these individuals, they seem to have a very particular disposition that I don't think many, and I've noticed many Afro-American people playing the game, even if they dislike the game, they'll say stuff about Frey. They'll say stuff like about this character. But I mean, once again, we can look at some of those old from the last chat they had from the last live stream, and they're talking about Fire, like how, and I'd already told you about this when her apartment, the abandoned building she was living at, caught on fire, and the city caught on fire in the little fantasy world. They said that's what happens when these types of people cause destruction in big cities. They're talking about Afro-Americans. They're talking about Afro people. And they're saying, who was there? George Floyd? Nah, he already took the fentanyl. So they have a lot of hatred towards certain types of people. I mean, a lot of real spite towards Afro people, it seemed, because they during this chat, during that particular live stream, they had brought up all types of stereotypes. I'm just showing you what I caught, and basically this was all I needed. I didn't need much more than this. The more I have, the better, but nonetheless, what I caught was pretty significant. As I told you in the last stream, they were teasing the fat woman. But what did they say the fat woman was eating? They said she's eating too much fried chicken and watermelons. And if this, just like I said, it all has to do with the main character being Afro-American. Okay, it all has to do with her being Afro. If she wasn't Afro-American, this whole conversation would not happen between them. If that was, as the Russian person said, just a white guy, yeah, these conversations about fried chicken and watermelons, they wouldn't happen. But if you don't know, that's exactly who Griffin Gaming allows to moderate his streams. So now. Maybe you didn't know much about Griffin Gaming. He's on YouTube and he has streams and he has people saying subjectively, in my opinion, racist things in his chat, and he deletes every stream. So it's not as though he doesn't know that his chat and that his streams have all types of abusive, type of offensive language. Let's say you're just joining the stream. Let's say you're a fan of Griffin Gaming and you're saying, hey, you know what, I just want to join the stream and see what Griffin Gaming's doing. This is what you have to deal with, what I just showed you. Okay? So it's not the type of place for most normal people. It isn't. Okay? Now let's talk about the input delay in Elden Ring, and you can just take a look at this. He's going to compare it to Dark Souls 3. Now, you see this? Here, do it. Now, it's pressing the button. He's pressing the button. Look at this. Elden Ring is a slow game. Elden Ring has button delays. I knew it when I first played Elden Ring that Elden Ring had button delays. It's ridiculous how slow Elden Ring is. And I remember Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, it seemed faster. In my opinion. But, yeah, that is a criticism you don't hear so often. People are having so much fun with Elden Ring and they say it's so good. But you see, oftentimes, popular press sort of rules the narrative. Popular press. If you have particular people on YouTube and Twitter say, hey, Forspoken is a bad game, most people will listen. They don't think for themselves. People are so easy to control. And that's that's the greatest significance of this whole situation has to me. The greatest significance is just how easily people are influenced and just how base and carnal they are. They don't really think logically about a thing, to be entirely honest. But sometimes, as I've seen, the truth does come out. The truth comes out. These are old videos. This was 10 months ago. Videos like this aren't made anymore. People don't make videos like this anymore. He's comparing Dark Souls 3. Look at this. He presses the button, it's faster. He presses the circle button, at least circle on the PS4 controller, it's faster. Look at how fast that is. I had known this a long time ago that Dark Souls 3 was faster. I really did. So how is FromSoft doing such a good job when they made their game slower? How is this so much better than Bloodborne? How is this so much better than Dark Souls 2 when the game is not even as fast? That's stupid, as far as I'm concerned. And now you have this video about input reading. Look at how ridiculous this input reading is. This is the great combat. This is the great combat of Elden Ring. Look at this. Look at how good this combat is. Isn't that amazing? That's just so amazing. Look at that fast, dynamic combat. That's so much better than Forspoken, right? So much better than Forspoken. I know games like Kingdoms of Amalur that have better combat than this. Dragon Age Inquisition has better combat than this. This is ridiculous. Look at how stupid that is. Look at all of that input reading. That's ridiculous. And here for another example. Look at how dumb this is. Look at this amazing Elden Ring combat. Look at how fast it goes. Every time you strike it, it knows and it strikes back. This is why the game's so unfair. Look at it. You're trying to use a bow. Hey, the arrows aren't... You're just wasting those arrows because those arrows are useless. The AI will just simply move. Look at how stupid this is. You can't hit him with the arrow. You're wasting a bunch of arrows on an enemy you can't even hit. It's so ridiculous. This is Elden Ring combat right here. You see it. How stupid this combat is. This is the best action RPG, right? Great action game. No, it's not. It's slow. It's so slow. You compare this to some real action RPGs, it's absolutely ridiculous. Okay? Absolutely ridiculous. I would even go so far as to say this is probably worse than Dark Souls 3. I'm not joking. This has to be worse than Bloodborne. So they made an inferior product that's just bigger. And they're comparing this to say, well, Elden Ring is better than Forspoken. Oh, really? Look at this stupid stuff. Elden Ring input reading. And he knows it. I can't read that Spanish or whatever language he's artificial difficulty, not at all, right? Yeah, it's artificial difficulty. And every time people say, hey, Elden Ring has artificial difficulty, Dark Souls games have artificial difficulty, they laugh at you. They make fun of you. A lot of these edgelords who like Berserk, oh, I like Berserk, I like Hidetaka Miyazaki, I like Kentaro Miura, he's so cool, big swords, yeah, they put the great sword from Berserk in Elden Ring, yay, wow, he's giving tribute to Kentaro, oh, so cool. It's so ridiculous, these neck-breathing, I shouldn't be that mean, these neck beards. I just say it. I mean, because that's the word that people use. You know, I mean, it's and you can't criticize it. You cannot criticize it, according to a lot of people. You just can't. Don't you dare criticize this. Honestly, don't you dare criticize this. But if you dare to criticize this, you will have Zuli the Witch. Here you are clearly seeing the input reading, and guess what Zuli the Witch has to say? Zuli the Witch has an excuse. Zuli the Witch has a justification for the FromSoft faithful. She has 600,049K views. Yeah, she's going to tell you why it's complicated. Yeah, that thing you saw, you didn't see that. You didn't see that thing you saw. That thing you saw is not real. This is not input reading. It's complicated. This is just a part of the game. Enjoy the game. This was made by Miyazaki. It has the chef's kiss. Get out of here. Miyazaki made this game. This is great. You want to buy this. Do it. And I'm just thinking, are you joking? Are you out of your mind? It's input reading. Are you joking? You folks don't know FromSoft games have been cheap? You folks really think that difficulty is not ramped up and artificial? You folks think that's fair? Ha ha ha! I'm not even joking. I know I sound like a crazy person right now, but I'm just telling you this. I was playing these games ever since Armored Core, okay? I've been playing this game since Armored Core. I know how cheap they are. A lot of these folks didn't even start at Armored Core. I'm not even joking. And you have people complain, they have too many tutorials. Yeah, well, is the dragon input reading you? No, you have your own little capabilities and powers that you can use in your situations. Is it unfair? I haven't seen one bit of gameplay where the stuff is unfair. Look at this. How is it unfair? I'm watching everyone's gameplay. Okay, I haven't even seen bugs basically in combat. I mean, I've never seen anything like what I've just shown you in regard to what other people had to deal with Elden Ring. No, that's ridiculous. Look at how fast and smooth that is. That's speed. You look at Elden Ring, that's a slow game. That's a slow game. Okay. Now I see there's some type of lighting effect here that looks kind of weird, but hey, it's fast, it's smooth. There's no lag, there's no delay, there's no input reading. The character's moving fast, the combat's moving fast, there's no delay. You move, the enemy moves, everything's fast. There's no way you can trick that enemy into, I don't know if there's a way you can trick the enemy into basically doing stupid stuff like you do in Elden Ring, but it certainly doesn't seem like it. The enemy has a pattern, its own patterns. It's not, the nonsense that you do in Elden Ring. No, this game is different. Square Enix, I will say, Square Enix often does deliver a quality product, especially in terms of gameplay. So, all the stuff we've been hearing, it's quite something. You've been hearing every complaint in the book. You've been hearing every complaint in the book by people who basically make money off talking bad about certain games. For example, Mr. Matty Plays. Mr. Matty Plays is an individual who has his own history. He, when people were saying bad things about Fallout 4, which was a game that had all types of bugs, okay, far worse than this. And it's just clickbait views. It's just clickbait videos. But let me show you what he gets the most views from. Forspoken is exactly what I feared. Square Enix's Avengers is exactly what I feared. Fallout 76, The Pit is exactly what I feared. Babylon's Fall is exactly what I feared. Godfall is exactly what I feared. Overwatch 2 is exactly what I feared. Diablo Immortal is exactly what I feared. Cyberpunk and the new, all this stuff. You see, he's been doing this for at least 2 years. This is Mr. Matty Plays, and he has these little clickbait negativity type videos where he puts the game down, and people watch it. And they give him more views. He got 469K views because people want to hate on this game. People intentionally, they want to give it bad press. And the people who are giving it bad press, they're getting a lot of views. You have these same Gamergate people who were involved in that whole scandal. And they've brought a black and Afro-American female protagonist in it because she's on the shopping block. She's not what they want. It's just like this person had said. It's just like this person had said. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe this Russian said this, let me show you something. Let me show you what it translates to. Because sometimes people are skeptical. Oh, you didn't translate that. This is a lie. You know. Some folks don't believe you when you tell them, frankly, what you've done. This is Russian. He says, why is the main character a black woman? Couldn't you make a white guy the main character? Yeah. I don't have the capture on. Not that I really need to play that. Let me take a look. One moment, please. Okay. All right. I don't know. Oh no, there's too much sound. There's too much sound, right? I think there's too much sound. I don't really know, people. I'm just gonna do this really quickly.
Почему главная героиня женщина-негритянка?
No.
Нельзя было сделать главным героем белого парня.
Wait 1 second.
Почему главная героиня женщина-негритянка?
I didn't even really need to do that.
Главным героем белого парня.
Yeah, this person spoke Russian. This is what he said. I'm gonna take the audio output capture off now. I mean, I didn't really need to play that, but I decided, you know, I mean, it's just surprising to see this to me, and I don't suppose I should be surprised. Okay, now, as I said, there's a lot of people playing the game. There's a lot of people enjoying the game. Okay, there are. And you're hearing so many bad things about it, but the game is not as bad as they're making it out to be. And people are still buying the game. People are still enjoying the game. In the Afro-American community, or rather, I shouldn't say community because we're not all community. People are individuals, all right? But there are many Afro-Americans, especially. I check for streams every day. And I've found so many Afro-Americans, they're enjoying it. And whatever they say, it's not about Frey. It's not about the voice actress. They're fine with the voice actress. They're fine with the character of Frey. Most of the ones I've seen, I haven't seen one of these people yet talking about how they don't like Frey. And she's a bad character and the voice actress is bad. All of the stuff we've been hearing from different folks. So I'm just going to tell you folks that you should do your own research and you should sort of not listen to the popular press. The popular press is really, they have a concerted effort to make this game look bad. And I know some of you already know that Elden Ring, the game they're comparing everything to right now, has many flaws. And if you're like me and you've played Armored Core, you know how janky all FromSoft games are. FromSoft games have always had jank, and they've always had the stupid level of difficulty that has never been fair. You know it. You know full well I'm telling the truth. You do. I mean, I've played FromSoft games nearly all of my life. Armored Core before Souls. I mean, people started at Souls. They're going back to Armored Core. I knew how janky Armored Core games were a long time ago. Okay? This is no surprise to me. A lot of you folks seem to be ready to just bow before Miyazaki and those folks at FromSoft. Oh, no. You know, I know that their games are not... that their games are certainly not perfect. It's not that I'm saying they need to be perfect, but oh no, they have their mistakes and errors in them. And I certainly do well to note them. Alright, and I remember when Elden Ring came out, no one was willing to talk about. I mean, early on people were, but you see, everyone who gave criticism to Elden Ring, they received a bunch of criticism back. Their whole channels would get disliked, bombed. people would try to do all types of things, report them. They would try to send them death threats, all types of nasty emails, a lot of weird stuff. And the comment sections today are the same way. I see some outright discriminatory personal stuff that is really quite, I shouldn't say surprising because it shouldn't surprise me at this point. It really shouldn't. Okay, but I have my Lovers of Forspoken playlist. You can find this on my channel page. Because basically I'm just watching people enjoy the game. And I find more and more people enjoy the game every day. I'm almost at 100 videos. I'm almost at 100 videos of people enjoying the game. And that to me is more realistic than a review. These are average people. These are people from all over the world. Japanese streamers, Russian streamers. There's a Latina woman. She's enjoying the streams. I mean, they're all playing the games. They're all really liking it. And those are the streams. I'm collecting everybody who enjoys the game right into this section, this playlist. Because when I have this playlist, I can prove to anyone, most people just hate the game. It's not a good game. It's obviously not a good game. I can say, I have a playlist of at least 50, if not 60 or so different people who think differently. I have at least, some of these videos are by the same people, but nonetheless, like this one, those are two videos by this Japanese person. But nonetheless, I have about 76 videos, so I have to have over 50 different people. So if over 50 different people are wrong about this game and their opinions are not right, and that's what people forget. Opinion is subjective. Opinion is subjective to people's perspective. Some people have different perspectives. They have different opinions. It's just like I said before. I already know that a lot of people cannot associate. They cannot associate themselves, or rather relate to, sort of play as a character of Afro descent and really enjoy it. I already know that. But for me, and for many of us Afro people, we have enjoyed playing as Euro people, as blonde-haired, blue-eyed individuals of European descent. And you can say, it's a video game, no one's of European descent, it's a fantasy world. In this case, it's a real Afro-American. That's part of the narrative. I mean, whether we believe it or not, and I remember Titus, as far as I know, was supposed to have black hair. From Final Fantasy X, he was supposed to have black hair. But, as far as I know, they changed it to blonde. Okay, he had aqua-colored eyes, blue eyes, and blonde hair. And we, as Afro-American people and other different races, have played and enjoyed games with other races. So, I'm speaking in particular about this comment. I'm not speaking about everyone because I know some people just do not like the game. I understand that. But this Russian said, why is the main character a black woman? It was impossible to make the main character a white guy. It's not that it wasn't possible. It's just that in Western media, they're trying to represent different races. There's not many black people there, but there's black people here in America. There's Afro-American folk. Okay. Maybe not in Russia, but that's the reality for the Western world. And whether people like it or not, this is globalism. Okay, and I'm going to get sort of personal about it. If he didn't want this, and of course he's a Slavic person, he doesn't really know. Of course, then again, there are African people who migrated to Russia. So, hey, it's not as though people don't have the cultural and sort of racial knowledge and awareness that there are different people, that the world is not homogenous. But as far as I'm concerned, it's common sense. It's common sense. But, I myself, I'm just seeing the implications of all of this. It's just like I said, Elden Ring, they keep propping it up. But if you want to understand it, you have to go to VatiVidya. Because the game is so confusing. Hey, it's going to take me a while to do some things in regard to it because I'm still gathering information. I'm looking into every detail and aspect of it. If you want your fast food lore, if you want someone to tell you the story and basically regurgitate it to you, and you don't want symbolic explanations like I'm going to give, like I gave for Demon Souls, then sure, Vati Video is where you go, and that's where most people go, because they cannot understand the story. People don't realize that most people, or rather a lot of folks are not admitting, most people cannot understand Elden Ring whatsoever. A lot of people will co-sign that idea. Elden Ring has the best narrative. And ask some of those people say Elden Ring has the best narrative. Ask them to explain to you what the narrative means, what the implications of the narratives are. Ask them what it is to explain it verbatim. If you have someone who is basically talking to you about Elden Ring, say, Elden Ring has such a good story. Maybe you disagree. Just ask them to tell you and explain to you the story. I want you to do that. Because a lot of them have a lot of mouth when it comes to their favorite game, and they will not shut up about it. They will not stop comparing it to everything. Everything has to be like Elden Ring. You can't have comedy. You can't have things that aren't serious and dark and dour and gloomy and okay. There's so many things I could say about it. There really are. And there's so many YouTubers already saying a bunch of things. But this may not be my last video about this. Because basically, I know I don't get many views. I know I don't get many subscribers, but sometimes I just feel the need to say something about this because I'm seeing it every day. I'm seeing more and more crazy things. They're crazy in my opinion because the outlash, the sort of negative reaction, the bad reaction to this game is so incredibly ridiculous. It's just so fantastical. It's like, wow, it's that bad? You really think this game is like just terrible? And if anyone thinks it's good, they're defending it and they're just wrong. That's how some of these people talk. They say, oh, there's people defending Forspoken. Yeah, and one of the things many of these people will not say is that it gained a lot of popularity in the Afro-American community. So a lot of the people who are defending it are Afro-Americans. And it's just like I said, the divide is, sad to say, it's along racial lines. A lot of it is. Not to say it's completely along racial lines, because there's a lot of Euro-Americans and Europeans who really like it, and people of all different races. Russian people who like it. Japanese people who like it. You see this woman? She's a Russian woman. This is Red Shulk. She's a Russian woman. We saw a Russian who didn't like it. Okay, we saw a Russian who said, why can't you make the character white? Why can't you make the character a white guy? And it's funny, that's coming from a Russian. Slavic people are mixed with Asiatic, Turkic blood. Hitler did not even consider Russians to be white. That's really funny that he says that. There are a lot of Russians who think they're, you can consider them white, but they're mixed with Turkic blood. You can just look at their eyes and features and compare them to Europeans. White is a social status. That's an antebellum term. Okay, those are slave terms. They don't have any racial significance, white and black. They don't. Okay? They're used commonly now, but, there's a difference. It's just like if a French person says, hey, we're fellow white people, to a British person. Now the British person says, hey, I'm a British person. You're a French person. There's a German person over there. They don't all come together and say, hey, we're fellow white people, we're all brothers. No, the German has an entirely different culture than the French person. The French person has an entirely different culture than the British person. And the British person has an entirely different culture than both of them. So they don't get together in Europe and say, oh, look, we're white folk. No. It's funny. You can consider them all to be white people, but they are, in terms of race, there's many different, there's aspects to a French person and qualities and features that French people have that German folk and Russians and other such folk don't really have. That's why, this idea of white and black, it's not specific. and it doesn't really work to really qualify anything. Basically this guy, this Russian guy, wanted him to be basically to look white. That's what he wanted. He wanted him to look European, to look Slavic, some blonde hair, some blue eyes, some brown hair, whatever. If they made him look Greek or Italian, I'm sure maybe he would have a problem then, because some of those folks are considered to look different than most other so-called white people. So, hey, how can you satisfy people like that who say things like this? How can you satisfy this Russian man? The only way you can satisfy that Russian man, let me see his name. I want to see his name. Here's his name. The only way you can satisfy that Russian man is to bring a character like this up. Make Forspoken, but give him this. Because that's his complaint. It isn't the gameplay. It isn't anything else. It's, hey, can you make him into a white guy? Is it impossible for you to make him the white guy? Yeah, here's your white guy. We had a so-called white guy in Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy 9, 7, 8. How many of these Euro characters do you need? Honestly. And none of them look Slavic, so I don't know why he has a problem. Slavic eyes look a lot different than European eyes. But hey, that's a whole nother different thing to talk about, because Slavic eyes look kind of Asian sometimes. Okay, but sure, I mean, why can't there be a white guy, right? That's what he says. But hey, I'm going to go to Google Translate. I'm going to translate his name, because I want to see what his name means. Because it's all quite interesting. Raccoon striped. Okay. Well, the raccoon has many stripes, so why is he complaining? The raccoon has a mixture of colors. But yeah, it's all been very interesting just looking at the implications of this response. Oftentimes I look at the implications of media, but this time I'm looking at the implications of this response. What Forspoken is it's like a lot of media. And that's why it's kind of interesting to see why people hate it so much. It's about the same things that so many people like. Swords, sorcery, witchcraft, witches, wizards, magic, fighting people, killing people, all of this stuff that so many people love, that affects the culture so deeply. Okay? All of this stuff that so many people like and really engage in on a daily basis in these video games, you don't like in Forspoken. Or a lot of these folks don't like in Forspoken. So it's interesting. And folks, I just want to talk about that. It's just like I told you, I do videos on impulse. There's no real schedule to my videos. I may try to make another manga reading for Claymore next. It's kind of intimidating reading manga, because I'm thinking, well, my voice is not, I don't do voice acting well. My voice doesn't really sound good for the characters, but, some people do like it. I'm sorry for those subscribers who've been waiting for another chapter to be read in the Claymore manga. I'm very sorry. I do wish to continue that. And I may do that sooner rather than later. But I just felt like talking about this. This to me is incredible. It's very interesting. And so, hey, I couldn't help but talk about it. You can find my Lovers of Forspoken playlist right on my channel. There's another user by the name of Tara Grimface who also has this playlist. Mine may have more videos because that one has not been updated. We were collaborating on that playlist, but this has all been very interesting, people. May you be blessed, and farewell. Truly.